That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we're going to go through and we are going to talk about some of these players that have risen the most in my rest of season rankings. We're going to be looking at not only guys that honestly have risen the most in my own rankings, but also just that have risen the most with their fantasy football trade value. And we're going to be looking at them saying if it's deserved, if we think we should be trying to sell high, if we think we should just be holding for the production. And of course, before we get into it, you know exactly what we have to do. We're going to have to give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats. Every single video, we're giving away multiple Fantasy Flock Network hats. And yeah, our first one going to be coming out from Andrew, who says, love it when Thomas talks back. Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you, my friend. Obviously, Thomas has been absolutely killing the videos. And then Juice coming out says, keep up the great work, getting that Flock 16 win this week. Hat me. Yes, sir. You just won a Fantasy Flock Network hat. Thank you so much. Both long time members of the Flock supporting the channel. Thank you so much for everything that y'all have done for the channel for a very long time now. And yeah, of course, go down there, subscribe to the channel, drop that like, leave a comment to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And most importantly, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. I mean, on Underdog Fantasy, they are doing drafts throughout the year. You can get into drafts with us on the live stream. They also have player props on every single game this Sunday. Of course, they're going to continue to add player props leading up to Sunday. They do this every single weekend. We have crushed those props every single week. I mean, we have been extremely profitable so far. Hopefully we can keep it going. I know we won a lot of people some money this past week, but yeah, go use promo code FLOCK, deposit $10, get a max deposit bonus, and at the same time, enter in to get daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. Support this channel more than you would ever believe. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Let's dive into this list and let's start it off with a running back that we loved coming into the season. Let's go over to Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, currently a top 10 running back in fantasy. I mean, this is someone that we loved, and the thought process why we loved Kareem Hunt is we went through and we looked at him, and you were having to take him in the same range as, I mean, he was actually going after Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin, two running backs that we wanted nothing to do with, identifying that both those running backs were going to be playing on significantly worse offenses. Both those running backs were significantly worse players, and we were going to prefer to bet on the talented running back here with Kareem Hunt, someone that back in 2017 led the NFL in rushing. I'm sure that 90% of people have heard me say this same exact statement with Kareem Hunt for so long now because we were trying to convince everybody to draft him. But this was a running back that we were drafting because he was going as a low-end running back too. And we were saying, well, based on the usage that he has in the receiving game in Cleveland alone, that his floor is to be a running back too. And then we said that if you actually had it where Nick Chubb in front of him went down due to injury, Kareem Hunt would vault up to being a top 5 running back in fantasy. That the floor ceiling combination with Kareem Hunt made him so damn appealing. And I will admit, even though we were drafting Kareem Hunt everywhere, I was not expecting what we have had so far this season. Where with Kareem Hunt, that usage in the receiving game, exactly what we were drafting him for. I mean, it's been there. Through 4 weeks, he's had 15 targets so far. So he's almost averaging 6 targets a week here. But a big thing that I want to look at is the fact that with Kareem Hunt, this is a running back that has also captured the goal line role for the Cleveland Browns. Now, I can't sit here and say that this is guaranteed to continue to happen throughout the rest of the season. Kareem Hunt currently is sitting as the running back 8 in fantasy. I don't have him ranked as a top 10 running back. I mean, while I would love to, while I wish that we could project this production to continue going forward, you would imagine that Nick Chubb at least gets some touches at the goal line going forward. It's not just going to be Kareem Hunt every single game. Now, it's very bullish for Kareem Hunt knowing that he has this in his range of outcomes, where right now on a per game basis, Nick Chubb sitting at running back 13. You have Kareem Hunt at running back 8. Kareem Hunt scored 20 more points through 4 weeks so far. The majority of this has been through the fact that this is a running back with a significant amount of value at the goal line, like we've already discussed. But a big thing that I want to look at is with Nick Chubb here, I mean, I think this proves that we were so damn right to avoid Nick Chubb in the first and to smash Kareem Hunt in the 6th. Nick Chubb has also had 3 touchdowns so far this season. So if you're a fond player of Nick Chubb, you can't necessarily just be using the excuse that Kareem Hunt's gotten some of these lucky touchdowns at the goal line, and that if Nick Chubb does get that roll back, that Nick Chubb has that top 5 running back overall upside, because the usage in the receiving game here is so damn important. That's what's making the difference between these 20 points missing between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. They have the same amount of touchdowns on the season, but if you're getting one of these running backs that's actually getting targeted out of the backfield, like we already discussed, Kareem Hunt has 15 targets so far this season, whereas Nick Chubb only has 4. That's what's going to make up the difference. So with Kareem Hunt, we have him as our running back 18. I'm definitely still looking to hold him. I mean, I know a lot of people have made fun of me when we were saying that if something happened to Nick Chubb, if Nick Chubb goes out in week 5, he tears his ACL, Kareem Hunt becomes the top 5 running back. Is anybody going to be arguing with that now, in that you're looking at Kareem Hunt as the running back 8 when Nick Chubb has been healthy every single game this week? I think Kareem Hunt has that very high floor where you can start him every single week, and he has a very high ceiling if anything happens to Nick Chubb. Now, our next running back that I'm not going to lie, I was only drafting him because of his elite ceiling if anything happened to the running back in front of him, Tony Pollard. Now, Tony Pollard has come out here and he has been extremely impressive so far this season. I mean, listen to the efficiency that you've had here so far with Tony Pollard. He's only had 8 targets out of the backfield, which is surprising considering the fact that, I mean, he has already beaten his ADP on a per game basis with Ezekiel Elliott being fully healthy. If you were going to tell me, hey, Tony Pollard, yeah, he's getting drafted as like the running back 34 right now. What if I told you that he was actually the running back 30 on the season? How did he get there without an Ezekiel Elliott injury? I'd be going, okay, well, I guess he got more targets out of the backfield than we were assuming. I guess he phased Zeke out on third downs. Well, no, he's actually only had 8 targets out of the backfield, and he hasn't had that much usage in the rushing game either. I mean, he's only had 37 carries so far this season. So he's averaging about 10 touches a week, which is great for a wide receiver. It's not much at all for a running back. But what is incredible so far with Tony Pollard, and what should get you excited about him in the long term, is the fact that the efficiency you have seen with this Dallas Cowboys offense, and that the offensive line looks like the best it's been in years. To go along with it, Tony Pollard himself, I mean, you kind of see this when he's on the field with how dynamic he looks, but he's come out and he has crushed on a per touch basis. This past week, he has 6.7 yards per carry. The week before, he has 60 rushing yards with 11 carries. I'm no mathematician. I'd say that's like 5.6 yards per carry. And then here, the week before that, off 13 carries, he had 109 rushing yards. We're not going to try to do that off the top of the head, or I'll just embarrass myself, and a rushing touchdown to go along with it. So if you also look at the frame of Tony Pollard, you look at the fact that this is a running back that weighs 215 pounds. Well, yeah, you're not necessarily going in and jamming him every single week. I think that this is a player that you're viewing in the light of, he is the number 1 handcuff running back in the entire NFL. I mean, no, we just saw Alexander Mattison crush whenever Dalvin Cook missed. I still think we would rather have Tony Pollard over Alexander Mattison, however, because I'd be more comfortable with the role that Tony Pollard is going to have every single week with Ezekiel Elliott being in there. And at the same time, I think based on the efficiency we have seen not only from Tony Pollard himself, but this overall Dallas Cowboys offense, that if something were to occur to Ezekiel Elliott, he does jump up and all of a sudden, I don't want to say he's the top 5 running back like Kareem Hunt would be, but he's at least the top 10 running back. Now, our next running back, we're possibly going to have to move him up in the rankings yet again. Cordell Patterson. Now, this is a running back that's going to be seeing an expanded role this upcoming week whenever you're viewing him as a player that's going to have no Calvin Ridley in this offense. So maybe his usage in the receiving game is unbelievably safe. I mean, you're looking at him so far being the running back 2 in fantasy. And this has mainly been driven based on the usage in the receiving game, as well as what he's been getting in the touchdown category, where he's actually had 5 touchdowns so far this season. Now, keep in mind, there's no way in hell you can continue to expect that we are getting 5 touchdowns consistently from Cordell Patterson. What's more impressive is what he's getting in the receiving game. I mean, so far this year, he's had 22 targets out of the backfield. That's not fantastic, but with the efficiency that you were seeing from these targets, where, I mean, he's getting 5 receptions, 82 receiving yards, 6 receptions, 82 receiving yards, 5 receptions, 58 receiving yards. This is nothing that you expect from a running back. I mean, you don't expect this level of efficiency from most wide receivers. I mean, Cordell Patterson, on a per touch basis, you could make the argument that he has possibly been the best player, at least the best running back in the entire NFL so far this season. Keep in mind, this is someone that's not necessarily playing any snaps at all. I mean, he played like 23 snaps this past week, which makes me want to be a little hesitant on him going forward and just assuming that he is all of a sudden going to maintain his status as a running back 1. So I actually currently have him ranked as a low-end running back 2, despite what he's done so far this season. But like we were just discussing, I mean, this week he's going up against the New York Jets with no Calvin Ridley. Nobody's going to be surprised if Cordell Patterson comes out. He bumps those snaps up from 23 to possibly, instead of only playing on 30% of the team snaps, to playing on the team's 60 to 70% of the snaps. And if that happens, you can't project Cordell Patterson to be a running back one with no other receiving options in this offense. I mean, he would just be a complete smash in this instance. Now, our next wide receiver is someone that I honestly whiffed on pretty damn hard. I mean, this is someone that I came out here and I said, do not draft this guy. And we've already discussed this slightly, but Deebo Samuel. Now, with Deebo Samuel here, of course, we can recap why I missed him. This is a player that we were looking at him going, if you go back to college, you go back to what he had at South Carolina, also what he's had so far through the first 2 years in his NFL career, he has never shown us the ability to stay healthy. So while we never, ever want to call a player injury prone in the NFL, understanding that football is such a random game over a small sample that if you're looking at a single player who's dealt with a multitude of injuries and you try to just label that player as injury prone, I mean, very similar to what a lot of people learned with Keenan Allen about 5 years ago, that's not something you can do to a player. I mean, unless you're Will Fuller, I think at that point you can maybe label that player. But if you're trying to predict injuries in the NFL, I promise you there have been so many instances proven that you should not be centering your analysis around the injury history of a player. That's what we did with Deebo Samuel. It led us down a very wrong path. And now we're sitting here with very little Deebo Samuel in our leagues. I mean, I was not high on him at all coming into the season. And he, so far, has had about 500 total yards. He's had 499 total yards through the first 4 weeks of the season. Now, keep in mind, the majority of that yardage, at least in 2 weeks in particular, in weeks 1 and 4, they came off of 2 busted plays where Deebo Samuel, had incredibly long receptions. That's not going to be something sustainable going forward. That will 100% regress. But nonetheless, you're looking at Deebo Samuel clearly taking over as the alpha wide receiver here in San Francisco. We can't sit here and we can't blame the injury anymore for Brandon Ayuk. I think at this point, we may just have to say, well, Brandon Ayuk simply is not nearly the wide receiver talent that we once thought he was. So we have to go through, you have to raise your expectations for Deebo Samuel. So I have moved him up to the wide receiver 16 in our rest of season rankings. I know that that's going to be very low to most people. Let me pull up my rest of season rankings right now. Of course, this is available on Patreon. But here with Deebo Samuel, the reason we're going to have him at wide receiver 16 for this week is I really want to see what the transition for Trey Lance is going to look like in this offense. Now with Trey Lance, very similar to Jalen Hurts, where I love Jalen Hurts coming into this year based on the idea that he could be a bad NFL quarterback and yet still at the same time be hyper productive for fantasy, knowing that this is a quarterback that's going to drive the majority of his value with his rushing ability. I'm kind of thinking maybe it could be a similar situation with Trey Lance. So with Deebo Samuel, we're going to have him at wide receiver 16. We are going to have him in the same tier as guys like Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. You know what? There's no reason for us to have CeeDee Lamb over Deebo Samuel at this point. I think we're going to have to move CeeDee Lamb down based on the idea that CeeDee Lamb has been significantly worse than Deebo Samuel, and he's had no reason to do so. Whenever you have Michael Gallup out of this offense, Michael Gallup will be coming back in some time. So we're going to have Deebo Samuel actually bumped up to wide receiver 15. He's going to be directly behind Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson. I can't put him any higher than this until we see what the production looks like with Trey Lance. Please let me know what you are thinking. Like right now, would you prefer in fantasy? I know your answer. I know exactly what everybody's thinking. I know y'all would rather have Deebo Samuel over Mike Evans, over Amari Cooper, over Chris Godwin. I can't necessarily get there. I will say if you could go through and sell him for another wide receiver, not in that same tier that we have him in right there with those guys, but if you could go a tier above where you sell Deebo Samuel for DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, that would be fantastic. Now our next wide receiver, also someone I have to admit we whiffed on, Marvin Jones here. Marvin Jones looking like he may be putting together the best season of his career once you get this DJ Chark injury. I mean, DJ Chark fracturing his ankle is going to open up a ton for Marvin Jones, who is currently sitting as the wide receiver 32. I mean, on a per game basis. Here, if you're looking at this past week against the Cincinnati Bengals, he was very disappointing, but still on the season so far, he's had 31 targets through the first 4 weeks. We've moved him up to the wide receiver 30 in our ranking. So yeah, kind of where he's been so far this year. But I think while yes, you have to be very concerned what you have from Urban Meyer, where Urban Meyer's proven to be one of the worst head coaches so far in the NFL in 2021. While yes, Trevor Lawrence from a yards per attempt standpoint has been horrendous, but knowing the prospect that Lawrence was coming into the NFL, I'd imagine that he gets improved quarterback play in the second half of the season. Also, no DJ Chark in this offense with no significant wide receiver 3. I think this will be a spot that Marvin Jones is potentially looking at getting 22 to 25% of his team targets. 25% is probably out of the range of outcomes, but he can get 22% of his team target share. And here, Laviska Shenault's been used more so primarily around the line of scrimmage, where Marvin Jones has been that deeper threat. So Marvin Jones, you have to get more excited. I mean, there's no explanation on why you can't have Marvin Jones at least as wide receiver 30. If I'm going to be pulling up where we have him in our rest of season rankings right now, the other players in this range, we have him in the same tier as guys like Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, Cortland Sutton. Michael Thomas, he's going to continue to rise up. As soon as we get Michael Thomas back and healthy, he'll be probably 10 spots higher than this. But yeah, Marvin Jones right now, like, who would you prefer between Marvin Jones, Brandon Cooks? We have Brandon Cooks 2 spots higher, but I think Marvin Jones is at least in that same range, just knowing that the overall offense can't get any worse. His overall role should expand with no DJ Chark, and he's looked solid on a per target basis. Now, our next wide receiver, we honestly have him as our most drafted wide receiver in the $250 leagues that we did on Underdog Fantasy this offseason. I've drafted him in 30% of those leagues. So if I'm pulling this up right now, I mean, this is something we showed off in a live stream just so I could flex on y'all, but I mean, this looks like it's going to be a good, profitable year despite Cam Akers going down, despite Travis Etienne going down. It's mainly because of Mike Williams here. Mike Williams coming out and crushing. And with Mike Williams, yes, I know he disappointed on Monday night. I know you just had the announcers every 5 seconds going, oh my God, throw the ball to Mike Williams, throw the ball to Mike Williams. And yes, he only had 2 fantasy points. Very disappointing. Now, I'll say, going into week 4, we had Mike Williams ranked as the wide receiver 16 in our rest of season rankings. After that performance, we moved him down 1 spot, mainly just because we had to move Deebo Samuel up. It wasn't necessarily moving Mike Williams down at all. We moved him down to wide receiver 17. This is still a wide receiver that you're just looking at the first 3 weeks of production that we had here. He was the wide receiver 2 going into this past week. And what we love to see with Mike Williams is A, the offensive line for the Chargers looks fantastic. It's a vastly improved overall unit. B, Justin Herbert looks like he is just continuing that campaign that he had in his rookie season. And C, with Mike Williams here, most importantly, he's not just exclusively getting used as a deep threat in this Los Angeles Chargers offense. Instead, he's getting targeted at every area of the football field. So yeah, I really like what we have from Mike Williams. I would honestly maybe look to buy low after this past week's disappointing performance. Not necessarily going to be looking to sell. Now, our next player will be coming in as our tight end 13 in our rest of season rankings. I know a lot of people have him higher than this, but Dalton Schultz. Okay, so Dalton Schultz, yes, he has gone from a waiver wire player to someone that you're looking to start. At least you're jamming him in your lineup this week with no Michael Gallup here. Now, Dalton Schultz, it is a little bit different because I will tell you, admittedly, every single league that I plan is tight end premium, so it's a lot harder for me to look at my scoring format compared to y'all's. In a tight end premium format, he's actually the tight end 4 so far on the season. And yes, we have him down there at tight end 13. A big thing with Dalton Schultz is I know the volume's been there. Like, you're looking at 23 targets so far this season. He's been very productive with these targets as well. He's had 20 receptions out of those 23 targets. He's had 200 receiving yards. He's also had 3 receiving touchdowns. I just find it hard to believe that Dalton Schultz is going to continue this usage once you get Michael Gallup back to this offense. I think if you're looking at how this offense may function overall, with the addition of Michael Gallup in that he is infinitely better than Cedric Wilson, I think you may see this open up more for the wide receivers on the outside with Amari Cooper, maybe a wide receiver in the slot with CeeDee Lamb. So I think right now Dalton Schultz has been seeing this expanded role with no Michael Gallup in the offense, but when we get Michael Gallup back in a week or two, I think then Dalton Schultz will shrink down. I mean, if we had no Michael Gallup coming back, I think Dalton Schultz wouldn't be our tight end 13. He'd probably be like our tight end 8, but I just am a little bit worried here, so I would look to sell if we could. Now, our next player will be Sam Darnold, someone we discussed in those deep underdog best ball leagues as a very intriguing quarterback 2 to add onto your roster. And right now, we love the fact that we have this much Sam Darnold, and he is currently the quarterback 4 in fantasy. Now, a big thing with him being the quarterback 4 is he is currently leading the quarterback position, crushing the quarterback position in rushing touchdowns. He's had 5 rushing touchdowns so far this year. I have him as our quarterback 15 rest of season. Actually, I lied to you. We have him as our quarterback 14 rest of season. And this will be a spot that I would look to go through and I'd sell high. I mean, with Sam Darnold, whenever you get CMC back, I don't necessarily think it's going to take away based on the fact that they're going to run the ball more. I actually think that it's great that he gets one of his top receiving level options back with Christian McCaffrey. A big thing is, I mean, you're just not expecting Sam Darnold to come close to a rushing touchdown per game. I think those rushing touchdowns probably go in the direction of CMC going forward. And with Christian McCaffrey, yes, this is going to be a great weapon for the offense. Maybe they pick up more first downs. But still, Sam Darnold, it's very noisy here. We've had 4 weeks. We have a very large sample of Sam Darnold failing, while, yes, his quarterback coach was Adam Gase. I mean, his head coach. I apologize for that. And yes, you should expect the improved play for Darnold. I have a very hard time believing that we can just all of a sudden put him over guys like Stafford, Rodgers, Brady, Hurts. I actually have Trey Lance over him as well. So yeah, I would personally be looking to sell Sam Darnold for someone like Trey Lance. Now, thank you. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please make sure y'all go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. And you also get entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. Go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Thomas, I'll text you. I definitely want you to go through and put those player props on the screen if you can. And yeah, hopefully y'all got to see those player props with these players that we talked about on the screen for this week. Go make some player prop bets. Go get in a draft with us. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. And have a great day.